In 1943, the USS Eldridge allegedly vanished in a blinding flash of light during a top-secret Navy test. It's a story of teleportation and mangled sailors, hiding a much more grounded, fascinating reality. In the summer of 1943, American destroyers were taking heavy losses. The Navy desperately needed a tactical advantage to counter the relentless strikes of Nazi U-boat submarines in the Battle of the Atlantic. Inside the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, a newly commissioned destroyer, the USS Eldridge, was allegedly being fitted with several large high-voltage generators. With the war hanging in the balance, the shipyard was tense. Sailors whispered that these machines were designed to generate a magnetic field capable of rendering the warship entirely invisible to enemy radar. According to the story, it was time to test the system. In broad daylight, surrounded by other vessels and a full crew on board, the switches were thrown. Witnesses supposedly observed an eerie green-blue hum of light surrounding the hull. Then, in an instant, the Eldridge disappeared from the water entirely. Hours later, reports placed the exact same ship in the Norfolk Naval Shipyard down in Virginia, before it abruptly reappeared in its original berth in Philadelphia. The physiological toll on the crew was said to be devastating. Men stumbled off the ship disoriented and suffering from severe burns. Worse, a few sailors were reportedly found partially embedded in the ship's hull, their limbs sealed to the solid steel. These chilling descriptions cemented the Philadelphia experiment in the public imagination, establishing a permanent piece of folklore about the extremes of classified military testing. Yet, there is a glaring void in the historical record. For 13 years following the end of World War II, no physical evidence surfaced, and no sailor from the Eldridge or nearby ships came forward to corroborate the event. The narrative we know today did not emerge until 1956. It came from Carl M. Allen, writing under the pseudonym Carlos Allen Day. He mailed over 50 handwritten letters to amateur astronomer and UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup. Allen Day claimed the Navy had successfully applied Albert Einstein's unified field theory, a theoretical framework attempting to merge gravity and electromagnetism to achieve teleportation. He offered his own testimony to prove it, asserting he watched the entire event unfold from the deck of a nearby civilian merchant ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth. The most elaborate conspiracy theory in naval history traces back entirely to the unverified, handwritten ramblings of a single, highly eccentric narrator. The story might have faded away, except for an unusual administrative decision. In 1956, 2 officers at the Office of Naval Research received a copy of Jessup's UFO book, heavily annotated by Allende. For unclear reasons, the officers had a military contractor print 127 copies of this annotated edition. These transcribed versions, known as the Varro editions, circulated among collectors and amateur investigators. The military's apparent interest in the text gave the illusion of official validation. The actual military archives tell a definitive story. The Navy maintained detailed deck logs and war diaries for every vessel during the war, recording their movements day by day. The logs for the USS Eldridge show that on the day of its supposed disappearance, the ship was on availability training in New York and the Bahamas. It never docked in Philadelphia during the late summer or fall of 1943. With the vessel physically accounted for hundreds of miles away, the teleportation narrative falls apart. This leaves open the question of what the Navy was actually doing with heavy electrical equipment in the shipyards. The truth surfaces through testimony of electricians who worked on classified naval systems during that period. The Navy was running a highly sensitive, but entirely terrestrial procedure called degaussing. Engineers would wrap the circumference of a ship's hull in thick electrical cables, from bow to stern, and run massive, high-voltage charges through the lines. This process was explicitly designed to cancel out the ship's magnetic field, not optical invisibility. U-boats deployed devastating magnetic torpedoes triggered by detecting a passing ship's large iron mass. Degaussing neutralized that signature, allowing destroyers to slip past undetected. Even the ominous-sounding Project Rainbow, often cited by theorists, was simply the codename for the broad Allied military plans to defeat the Axis powers. The military did achieve a critical form of invisibility. It relied on the careful application of electromagnetism to save thousands of lives at sea. The fantastical elements of Allende's story are distortions of routine shipyard occurrences. The eerie green glow reported by supposed witnesses aligns perfectly with St. Elmo's fire, a common electrical weather phenomenon that easily ignites around high-voltage equipment. The sudden jump between Philadelphia and Virginia was a misunderstanding of naval logistics. The military regularly utilized restricted, off-limits inland canals to move ships between bases in 6 hours, instead of a multi-day voyage on the open ocean. The Office of Naval Research has consistently stated that force fields capable of rendering matter invisible or teleporting humans simply do not exist within known physical laws. And yet, despite documented ship logs, the verified science of degaussing, and questionable origins of the source, the narrative persists. The simple denial by the military serves as proof of a cover-up for those inclined to suspect one. The Philadelphia experiment endures because it preys on a natural human suspicion of classified power. When heavy wartime secrecy collides with public mistrust, a highly effective practical engineering procedure can easily mutate into an indestructible urban legend.